When we talk about tsunami, we imagine big waves that sweep away everything in their path. There seems to be no limit to these waves, as some exceed 1,600 feet in height, and some can tear apart several countries or even cause the extinction of many animals. Let's take a look. This is Infinity, and in this episode you'll see the most powerful tsunamis in the history of mankind. Let's go! Lituya Bay earthquake and mega tsunami. It feels as if all the most destructive natural disasters happened a really long time ago, centuries and millennia ago. But not tsunamis. The most powerful one was relatively recent, in 1958, and it happened in a rather atypical place for a tsunami, in Alaska. The Lituya Bay mega tsunami was colossal. The waves were really over 1,640 feet in height, and most incredibly, with all its enormity and power, the disaster was almost without casualties. It all started on July 9, 1958, when a very powerful earthquake of a magnitude of about 8 occurred in the area of Fairweather Mountains, about 13 miles southeast of Lituya Bay. The earthquake caused a rockfall that eventually turned into a huge landslide. More than 1 billion cubic feet of rock collapsed into the Lituya Bay, resulting in a mega tsunami. The largest wave, in fact, blew the Gulf toward the ocean before rising up the slope and reaching a height of 1,719 feet. By comparison, the height of the notorious Indian Ocean tsunami waves didn't exceed 98 feet. The mega tsunami in Lituya Bay is still considered to be the largest in history, force of which has been accurately recorded. Since I mentioned the Indian Ocean tsunami, it's worth telling about. Although the waves were not as high as in Alaska, it was enough to make it the most destructive and deadly tsunami in modern history. As always, it started with an earthquake. The epicenter was in the Indian Ocean. Following the underwater tremors on the morning of December 26, 2004, the tsunami began. The waves monstrously went deep into the continent at high speed, devouring everything in their path. At their peak, the waves were up to 98 feet high, but on average, they were lower. However, this was enough to damage nearly 24 countries. The countries of Southeast Asia suffered the most, but the effects of the underwater earthquake was felt far from the region. Scientists estimated that the power of the Indian tsunami was 1,500 times greater than the power of the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. It's not surprising that the tsunami tore apart the coasts of many countries, turning them into a mess, and unfortunately took the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. After that sad day in December 2004, scientists around the world made every effort to ensure that such mass disasters wouldn't happen again and that people would be promptly informed of the coming tsunamis. This helped, but didn't completely eliminate the problem. Already, 6 years and a few months later, a big catastrophe happened in Japan. Yes, this is that very 2011 earthquake that was the most powerful in the known history of Japan, and one of the most powerful in world history. The magnitude exceeded 9 points, which is almost the maximum. But it wasn't just one earthquake. The tremors were followed by waves that were already big in the sea. When the tsunami came ashore, the waves were up to 33 feet high in some places. As in the case of the 2004 Indian tsunami, the elements began to destroy the coast. Many settlements were washed away. Thousands of homes were flooded in some cities, and in Sendai, which was hit hardest, the water flooded an area of 6 miles from the seacoast. Furthermore, the earthquake and the tsunami led to a major accident at the Fukushima nuclear power plant, and the disaster took the lives of more than 20,000 people. Despite all Japan's advance, the country is still dealing with the consequences of this living nightmare. By the way, the Japanese earthquake also affected several countries. Tsunamis were observed in New Zealand, Canada, the USA, Chile, the Philippines, and Russia. Speaking of the latter, did you know that one of the largest and most destructive tsunamis in history occurred here? It really did. November 5, 1952 was a dark day for Chamkatka and the Kuril Islands. Then there was a powerful earthquake of magnitude about 9 points, the strongest in the history of Russia. Then everything was classic. The earthquake caused a tsunami. The tsunami destroyed the city of Severokurilsk. It was almost completely washed away from the face of the earth. The tsunami destroyed almost all settlements, taking with it more than 2,000 lives only, according to official data. Only a small part of buildings survived, those that were located on high ground. The entire eastern coast of Kamchatka and the Kuril Islands was also badly damaged. The coast was destroyed. This isn't surprising, since the waves reached almost 66 feet in height. Even giant blue whales were washed out of the ocean and washed in the middle of devastated settlements. By the way, they decided to keep the catastrophe a secret. They didn't write about it in the newspapers. The first scientific information about the tsunami was published in 1958, and the information about the damage appeared only in the early 1990s. Some tsunamis wipe out entire populated areas, while others lead to species extinction. You've probably guessed by now that I mean the very thing that caused the extinction of the dinosaurs. About 65 to 66 million years ago, an asteroid about 8.6 miles in diameter hit Earth. It landed on the Yucatan Peninsula, leaving behind the giant Chicxulub crater. The impact was monstrous. To give you an idea of the scale, the Soviet Tsar Bomba, considered to be the most powerful thermonuclear device, was 2 million times weaker. The fall of the giant asteroid triggered a tsunami nearly 1 mile high, which may be an all-time record. In the Gulf of Mexico, the wave traveled at 89 miles per hour, and in the first 24 hours, the tsunami covered the Atlantic. Large waves swept literally all over the world. In addition, the fall of the asteroid caused shock waves and released a huge amount of burning rocks and dust into the atmosphere, causing forest fires and leaving the planet without sunlight for a long time. All this combination eventually killed the dinosaurs and changed the planet forever. Giant tsunamis are just one of many natural disasters, but there are also earthquakes, landslides, avalanches, hurricanes, and more. And they can be even more dangerous and scary. Keep watching to see more of the most destructive and crazy natural disasters of all time. The Great Chilean Earthquake. Tsunamis are usually inextricably linked to earthquakes, so I suggest we start with them. Statistically, there are about 20,000 earthquakes every year, an average of 55 per day. Some go unnoticed at all, some are in the news, and some become very destructive and record-breaking. The leader in this regard is the Great Chilean Earthquake, the most powerful earthquake in documented history. Its magnitude was 9.5. It occurred on May 22, 1960. Powerful tremors were felt on the territory of 77,000 square miles and caused a tsunami. The waves were very big, up to 33 feet high, and traveled far from Chile. Some even reached as far as Hawaii, Japan, and the Philippines. As a result of the cataclysm, the city of Valdivia was almost completely destroyed. Millions of people were left homeless, and the country itself was badly damaged. At the same time, not as many people became victims as they could have been in such a cataclysm, all because the main blow fell on sparsely populated areas. Hurricane Isabel. Okay, let's leave earthquakes and tsunamis alone and move on to no less destructive and spectacular cataclysms. Hurricanes are always something scary and powerful, but not all of them can compare with Hurricane Isabel. This is the most powerful and deadliest tropical cyclone, which raged in September 2003 in the Atlantic Ocean. It formed on September 6th, and already after 5 days, the wind speed in the vortex was 165 miles per hour. The hurricane was given the highest category. The hurricane entered the territory of America only on September 18th. By that time, it was not so powerful and fast, but even weakened Isabel destroyed many settlements without problems. North Carolina was hit, as well as South Carolina, Virginia, and Maryland. These states accounted for most of the death toll. It was also here that millions of residents were left without electricity for several weeks. Incidentally, the hurricane not only destroyed population centers, but even washed away parts of Hatteras Island, turning it into what is now called Isabel Inlet. Huascaran Avalanche. It's difficult to escape from an avalanche, as well as from a hurricane, especially if it's a record-breaking avalanche in history. It happened in Peru last century. To be more precise, it happened twice. In 1962, in the town of Yungay, an avalanche fell from Mount Huascaran. Yungay was lucky. The glacier passed by, and the town wasn't much affected, but dozens of neighboring villages were destroyed forever. They say shells never hit the same place twice, but Yungay was an exception. On May 31, 1970, a powerful earthquake struck the region. A massive chunk of ice and rock broke away again from Mount Huascaran. Its length was a mile, and its volume was estimated at about 1 billion cubic feet. In a few minutes, the glacier traveled 10 miles, reached the Rio Santa, blocked the river, and reversed its flow. this time Yungay was unlucky. Avalanche swept the town. Multi-ton ice flows and rocks swept through the town, destroying everything in its path. About 30,000 people fell victim to the terrible disaster. And the avalanche was a record-breaking one of its kind. Fortunately, it was record-breaking in terms of destruction. And I suggest we end with the cataclysm that was the most devastating last year. There has to be something as fresh as possible in this video. Hurricane Ida was that cataclysm. The Atlantic cyclone of the 4th category raged in late August to early September. It struck the southeastern part of the United States. Louisiana was hit hardest. More than 70% of the state lost power. Millions of homes were left without electricity, and the Mississippi River changed the direction of flow. Due to the cyclone, a huge amount of precipitation fell. Heavy rains flooded the first floors of buildings and stopped the work of the subway. Consequences were felt even in the northeast of the country. In total, more than 100 people became victims, and the damage caused by the hurricane turned out to be unsurpassed in 2021. It's estimated at $75 billion, and the consequences of the disaster are still being dealt with. That's all, guys. What terrible cataclysm have you seen in person? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.